Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
Hello there, it's me, Steve Mellor, and welcome in to GrowthReady, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. On this episode, we welcome in Collin Henderson, speaker, author, and a leader in the field of mental conditioning. As the founder of Master Your Mindset, Collin helps us focus on how effective we can be in our work while prioritizing inner fulfillment. Because in order for us to grow, we must learn to talk to ourselves in ways that readies us to realize our potential. Okay, welcome in to the most recent installment of the GrowthReady podcast. I am very excited for a guest that has been kind of in the works on and off now for about a year and a half since I first got introduced to him, and the world is what it is. We both get busy and we're here now, and that's all that matters most. Is I'm so excited to be bringing Collin Henderson into the show. And Collin, before we go any further, I'd love for you to answer the question that I ask everybody as we get started. What does it mean to you to be growth ready?
To be growth ready is your desire to improve has to be stronger than your fear. How many people don't step into a dream or a goal or a want or a hunger because they're afraid of how they're going to look? They're wasting that precious mental energy of figuring out and pontificating, what's someone going to judge if I don't do it right, or if I don't look like the most intelligent person in the room, or what are my parents going to say if I go off to do something different than they thought, or my peer group, or my spouse. So I think any high performer, any leader, I think if we can kind of wrap around, are you protecting your ego, or are you committed to growth? Are you focusing on selfish desires, or to be selfless and to serve a purpose that is larger than yourself? Are you focusing on the pressure or the opportunity to get curious and to get uncomfortable and be growth ready?
Yeah, love it. Always appreciate when the guest uses the phrase. Landing it so nicely there for us, but already so many insights there. The initial insight around that desire to improve stronger than the fear itself. I'm curious, just in your world and the spaces that you operate in with so many high performers, audiences that either are or have this drive to become high performers, what is it you're noticing today, at least, when it comes to the typical reluctance, let's say, to stepping into some of these things that you speak a lot about potential? Like, when we look at our potential, where does that reluctance come from, in your opinion, for us to just truly commit when it comes to pursuing our potential?
That word potential is very interesting. Like, do we even look at it from, am I maximizing every gift I've been given, every opportunity, every DNA that's been coded into my body, into my brain? And obviously the answer is no, but people who are winning, they've closed that gap, So what is that gap? What is that potential gap? So if I look at listeners, this is going to be a very high level coaching podcast. It's not going to be like this like Oprah conversation. It's going to be like, we got two coaches in the booth, in the lab, cooking up, just trying to serve and use our platform to be of service. And first of all, can we just say, Steve, thank you for those who are listening. How many things could you be doing, and you chose to get growth ready and come in and go to the Mind Gym and work on your personal development? I love this quote from Jim Rohn: your level of success rarely exceeds your level of personal growth work. So it really ties into your podcast. Yeah. So the question is, from 0 to 100, if 0 is you're absolutely not reaching your potential, like you're at a 0, and 100, like where are you right now? That's a vast thing. I put all together your relationships, your drive, your energy, your belief, your focus, your skills, being purpose-driven, serving, loving life, waking up super excited. Is it Monday? Is it Friday? I don't know. I can't tell. Having so much fun. I'm in such alignment with my purpose. And I think I look at two things two dials I want us to like unpack today, I guess, as I'm trying to like bring you value to your audience, is there's two levels there. Are you effective, but are you fulfilled? Is your effectiveness in terms of like your role, your passion, your craft, your art, like how effective are you to bring value to the marketplace? Like, can you deliver? But I think the other question I think we don't examine enough is, are you fulfilled? Because success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. I mean, what good is execution if you're miserable and you have a lot of money and you go home and you feel sad, lost, tired, stuck? So then to go to the original question is like, what is this question around growth? Why are people not open to it? Is I think we are a species designed for patterns. Pattern recognition, pattern adoption is how we survive. Up to over 95% of our actions are controlled by our subconscious mind. You know, when we're 25 and older, like we're just kind of hardwired of how we're thinking, how we're speaking, and the habits that we do. So the reason why I'm so like adamant about coaching is because my life didn't change until I had a coach. I was 33 years old. I was in pharmaceuticals. I was in fundraising before that. So it was probably around 10 years of like work where I wasn't a student athlete anymore. I wasn't a student. I had to get a paycheck. And I was good at watching Netflix. I was good at watching sports. I was good at watching movies. And it hit a point where I feel like I got 10 years out of school and my habit of learning stopped. And I got into patterns.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate truth, as you know, Steve, people aren't willing to do the work unless there's a crisis of some kind.
Right.
Unless their pain is driving them. I feel so crappy. I don't want to feel pain anymore. Like, what do I need to do? I guess I need to see a therapist or do a mastermind or hire a coach. That's the unfortunate thing. And I was so miserable in my job, anxiety, my blood pressure was in the high 140s, 150s, wasn't sleeping. The work environment was not very good for me. We had these verbal tests over the phone. I developed a late stutter because of anxiety when I was in like fifth, sixth grade. That got exacerbated. So my self-worth plummeted. When I changed companies, I had a mentor. His name is Frankie Pretzel. He was one of our sales coaches, and he literally changed my life. I was in Chicago doing a field ride with him for a week, and he was just telling me about it's mindset, it's your thoughts, it's here are these books on like neuroscience, like the business books are okay, but like the psychology of success is like what you should start studying. So I just never had a coach give me different ways to study, read, grow, and that opened Pandora's box for this obsession with like personal growth work. And like, I'm not defined by my past. This phenomenon of neuroplasticity is like a real thing. Your brain's a muscle that can be developed just like your lats, your delts, your pecs, your calves. I'm imagining, Steve, you have really awesome calves. I'm just kidding.
Too. It was soccer and swimming, man. Good for the calves. Good for the calves.
I know. So I think we just need to normalize. I think businesses, what I'm trying to do with businesses and schools and sports is, you can train your body, your craft, and your mind. Most businesses spend all their time on craft, their product, the marketplace, the competition, the spreadsheets, metrics. They don't spend time on the mind, like self-awareness and confidence and resilience and identity and habits and being in the present moment, values. They spend no time on that. They just go like, let's role play how to sell better. Like that doesn't do anything. You should know your product, but like knowing yourself is more important.
Yep.
So I just think they don't have coaches. It's not normalized. In the mental health space, we don't do something unless there's like a real bad problem. So the platform I developed called Master Your Mindset, I focus on prehab. You don't need to be sick to get better.
Yeah. And
just like we have systems around, we meet every week as a team, as a district. You have a ride along or you get evaluated by your leader. We have too many managers. We don't have enough coaches.
Right.
So putting them through a system of mental training is real. A lot of industries in sport and the armed forces are doing it. Why aren't businesses doing it?
Yep. And I want to go into all that as you put it, prehab work. And I almost want that to be where we go from here. But to stay here for a moment, something that you're alluding to is the importance of us seeing the mind, like you said, a muscle. And just to add like another metaphor and example to that, it's the engine, right? It's the engine. And so often we don't look at it as the engine, but when we think about how we show up energetically, like how we feel, the mood that we're in, the way we see ourselves is a direct correlation to the energy that we show up with, the engagement that we have in what we do. Like you said, those workshops where you get to have this back and forth with someone, you're going to do even something like that, which you and I probably both agree there's not a huge amount of longevity of benefit to. But at the same time, you're probably going to even execute better in those environments just by simply taking that step back and considering, how am I fueling the engine? What am I doing diagnostically to actually check in and ensure that I'm as well positioned as I can be to show up, to execute, to perform in a way that is fitting to what it is I'm trying to achieve. And that's where we go back to the potential piece. It's like, hey, the potential piece is not the focal point at the outset. It's a destination, it's a direction. But the work that you're alluding to here, it's saying, hey, I see the potential, but that's not necessarily where the focus needs to be. Am I hearing that right?
Well, I think what we need to work on in the being growth centered is I have a bracelet on my wrist that says process over outcome. Mm-hmm. There are so many outcome junkies in business and sport where they do it for the result only, and their self-worth and their vantage point of their identity and self-image and if I'm lovable is I have to achieve. Mm-hmm. And when you're so consumed by the result, you're really miserable and you're stressed out. Mm-hmm. And you're not happy. Now, I'm all about winning. I want to help you win, but mental training and growth work, that's an edge for most people because they fall in love with the journey, not just the result. Mm-hmm. And I love saying this name, Dr. 𝘕𝘕𝘕𝘕, who's the godfather of being in a flow state. I'm sure, Steve, you know about flow. And mm-hmm. Flow is where you're fully present. You're not judging. You're not critiquing. There's no past. There's no future. You're fully present. There's a challenge. There's a little bit of challenge. You're getting feedback. There's a clear goal you're striving to hit. But the activity is the reward, not the outcome. Mm-hmm. So listeners, do you love what you do? Do you love the process more than the outcome? Are you curious about learning more about it, learning about what drives winning or how you can connect better? If your obsession is not the final album, but making the album, you're going to make great art.
Yep.
Well, how do we do that, Collin? I'm an accountant. Or, I'm selling insurance. Well, it's about people. It's about getting to know people and what drives them. It's those connections. It's being a pro in your craft, growing in your craft, and loving the nuances of why you chose that line of work. And if you're miserable, be curious and find something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you spoke to that in your story. I'm curious. I'd love to go back to that little juncture that you found yourself at. Maybe I'm underselling it by saying little. That juncture that you found yourself at, where here you are, you get handed somebody through the universe in the version of this coach, and they have this influential impact on you to the point of where, even though you're excelling, like I've done enough research to look back on you, and okay, it wasn't like you just said, hey, this career is not working, I'm making a choice. That you were performing, you were a high performer in a specific field. And as true to everything that we're now speaking about in the current day, you're able to, can we go back now and just sort of say, let's check in with that Collin. What was it that, to that example that you just provided us, to any insurance agent that's listening to this, to someone who's in a career that they're not truly fulfilled by, what are some of those dominoes that started to go off for you, that started to go down for you, that brought you to that realization that if I'm to pursue my potential, the environment and the space need to change?
Yeah, I think environment's so important. Environment is so important of how you see yourself, the energy. A great quote to think about is leadership is a transfer of energy. So if you're in an environment where it's negative and it's always problem based and you're getting beat up all the time and mentally, emotionally, it's going to be hard to believe in yourself and to thrive, just like a plant. If there's no water, sunlight, and the soil's not fertile, it's not going to grow. So putting yourself in an environment, I was in a new environment that was conducive to my skills. So I think that's a great point, is find an environment and people, culture, vision, values, and play to your strengths. I think that's another thing. It's like, what do you do naturally well? You can try to develop your weaknesses, but we develop more in our strengths. So, and I define strengths as is what you really love doing. So what do you research? What do you talk about? What do you think about? And I was obsessed with growth and service. So I was in pharmaceuticals. I got hired by Bard, was selling to hospitals and surgeons. My dad used to call me the catheter king, so selling catheter devices and urology drainage devices. So I wasn't obsessed with voiding urine or urethras or bladders or, we would sell prostate biopsy on needles. So I wasn't obsessed with prostates. I was obsessed with taking large healthcare systems and unifying them into one system that optimizes time, energy, same systems of working together, more efficient, and really it's the outcome of the patient. So like being really obsessed with like service and streamlining and value. And I guess when I got in that environment, I was starting to learn this concept of mental conditioning. I was a college student athlete. I knew how to condition my body by running, lifting. As a baseball player and playing receiver in football, I can hit in the batting cage, I can run routes. But the third bucket, the mental side, I didn't do anything. So now I'm conditioning my mind. And I think, Steve, usually an exercise I do with any audience I'm working with is like, let's define mindset. Like, let's really define mindset. What is that and why is it important? So do you have a definition of mindset? I mean, as an elite swimmer and a coach and now an executive coach?
Yeah, for me, it's really putting me on the spot now. It would be my perspective toward the outcome that I am pursuing. That's how I've always looked at mindset. Yes, it is about the outcome, but it's the perspective that I need to carry toward that outcome that's going to have the greatest influence on my mind.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, it's that having a perspective. I would take that all day long. But to get more granular, I would define mindset as a conditioned set of beliefs that drive behaviors. A conditioned set of beliefs that drive behaviors. So I had to start unlearning things I learned. I had to condition having compassion and growth mindset. Things like gratitude and the power of service and how thoughts become things, like rewiring how I talk to myself, self-talk. Worry is simply visualizing what you don't want. Conditioning and wiring faith and abundance. I didn't know these words until I started reading all these books. So when you look at your beliefs, your conditioning is shaped by what you see, hear, and experience. That's been conditioning. So the Northwest in urology drainage devices, I was the third rep in like 2 years because they had no success. They were averaging 5 orders a month. It was the bottom of the barrel in the whole country. And I was listening to what people would say. Access to these physicians is impossible in Seattle. These healthcare systems, they don't like industry. So good luck. But we'll give it one more shot. We'll try one more person to see if they can penetrate. So working with Frankie Pretzel and learning about the mind, one of my favorite books that he had me read is The Brain That Changes Itself. And the first part of learning is you have to want to learn. When you don't have a lot of success, I think a lot of people just kind of give up and they just say it is what it is, and it's just they take it as fact and as gospel. Interest rates are too high, inflation's too high, access is horrible, the market's too crowded, our price is too expensive. You just condition these beliefs that's the competition. So I think I made a commitment to not listen to all the BS. I just made a commitment not to listen to like why we can't win in the Northwest. So my work was each day I would learn about the the product, the competition, the patient type, but I also learn about, how to create resilience and confidence, how to be in the present moment, So I took that territory. In 6 months. I had 50 orders. In 1 year, I had 100. And I can tell you different stories on how I did it, but I think as you teach high performance, are you taking what has been done in the past as gospel? No. Your past is predictive if you keep the same habits and behaviors and thoughts. You can rewrite your past if you upgrade and recondition creativity, courage, taking risks. Your desire to serve and grow has to be stronger than your fear of how to look intelligent and to look cool. And but I covered the 5 states, man. I was flying to Alaska and flying to the corners of Idaho and Oregon where no one was going there. If you only call in Portland and Seattle, yeah, access is tough. But in 5 states,
right.
Instead of focus on what you can't do, focus on what haven't you tried.
Right.
So I think I just taught myself a lot on I can do hard things.
Yep.
I can do it different. And I need to humble myself to, it's okay to fail. It's okay to not be the smartest. Actually, it's probably the best for you to not be the smartest person in the room.
Right.
I would reach out to mentors and pick their brain. And I was just obsessed with just growing.
I love it. And I think even I'm immediately very curious just about what the typical audience is saying when you ask a question about, hey, tell me what mindset means to you. I do the exact same thing when I speak to audiences with the word growth. And we learn we learn really quickly that every single person in the room has a different definition for growth. So why do we keep using it like a word that is understood by all when every room you walk into, everyone has their own experience of what growth means and what it looks like? And that's partly why, coming from the world of swimming and sport, I even lean toward a word like perspective, because everything that you said I'm in complete agreement with and nodding along. And the one thing I always battled in the world of sport was the fact that athletes would be very prone to looking to their left and looking to their right in the midst of competition. And that perspective, I used to always use that word as a coach. Again, we go back to the tunnel vision mindset of just hey, if your perspective is so outward and you're truly looking around you, it's near impossible to focus on what needs to be in front of you. And so for me, that was always my sort of rallying cry to anybody that I always felt was in a bit of doubt and not necessarily at their best on any given moment. But I do want to talk to what you were just alluding to there around the not listening to what we don't have to necessarily listen to, because I think even just on this topic now of mindset, everyone is so influenced today. Here we are, people are listening to this podcast right now. Who are we, Collin? Who are we to be the ones that are right? And someone's going to say, well, this is different to what I've heard before. So what do I listen to? What do I believe? What do I, how am I supposed to make a decision when the information around me has never been greater? So throwing it back to you now, man, where does a person start on even identifying what they should and should not be listening to wherever they find themselves on their journey?
I think their own voice, their own inner voice. Don't listen to yourself. Learn how to talk to yourself. Research from the National Science Foundation: 80% of human thoughts are negative, and 95% of human thoughts are reoccurring. That's where 95% plus of our habits and behaviors are hardwired, because you're on this pattern loop. So a lot of it is, this mindset is not conditioned by good things. If it's negative, it's like Velcro, it's sticky. Positivity is like Teflon, it bounces off. Think last time you got a review, you had nine things that they said you did well. The one bad thing, you couldn't sleep because you kept reviewing the one bad thing you did wrong.
Right.
So this conditioning is shaped by what I call trauma, drama, daddy, and mama shit.
Yep.
Trauma, drama, daddy, and mama. We've been conditioned from our childhood. We've been conditioned from our past mistakes. We've been conditioned by people who have hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think we can learn from children. Children are the best teachers of mindset. It's because when they're little, don't know if you have kids.
I do. Yep.
Okay. How old are they?
5 and 4. 5 and 4.
Tell me about their dreams.
Oh gosh. I mean, I just immediately started grinning the moment you mentioned kids, because as we speak today, it's Valentine's Day, right? Valentine's Day.
I got red
So-
on. Where's your
I know.
red,
I
man?
totally
You got any
failed,
pink?
man. It's kind of.
Is this
it's
St.
kinda
Patrick's
red.
Day? That's
It's
green.
kinda but as we were leaving the house this morning for the school run, my daughter's talking about who she's going to marry when she's older. I'm like, okay, sweetheart, just so you know, you're not dating till you're 25. Just keep that in mind, firstly. And then secondly, my wife chimes in and says, you got to meet another daddy, though. Like, she's like, she's making me seem like the Prince Charming, right? And I said, well, sweetheart.
That's a compliment. I love that your wife sees you that way. That's
right
plus for you.
Yeah, it's a big deal for me, definitely. But at the same time, when you talk about dreams, as recently as like literally as we're talking 3 hours ago, my daughter's alluding to everything that's possible in the world. Nothing is impossible, right? Yeah. Everything is possible. Everything.
And that's what we can learn from kids. Like their gift is there are no limits. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I used to draw Garfield. My dream was to play pro football and be an artist. Like those two combos, I'll do both. Why not? Who says I can't?
Right.
And then as we get older, because we get conditioned by people in our neighborhood, our church, our school, our circles socially, on what we can't do. So that just insane gift of dreaming insanely big gets weaker and weaker every year we get older. So that there are really two conversations I want everyone to have with themselves. The two most important conversations with the two people you need to not let down is that little child of yours that dreamed insanely big and had visions of whatever their heart desired. Like, are you honoring that? Because you have that's the same soul in you. Like, when you dream, you probably aren't the same age you are now.
Right. So
when you're sleeping, you're not your age. You're younger probably because you have this like childlike. What in dreams, when you dream at night, like there's nothing impossible. You're doing crazy, cool stuff. Yeah. The other conversation everyone needs to have and not let down is that person who you are on your last breath, the last day you're alive. Did you honor the dreams of your younger self? Did you honor the legacy of your older self? In terms of no wasted days, in the people that you impact, the growth you had, how you showed up. Were you living in an authentic place that was the best version of you? And I would define growth, just off the top of my head, is that pursuit of being the best version of yourself. It's not I'm the best, I'm my best.
Yeah.
And you talk about swimming, there's headwind and we get slowed down when we're looking at the other lane. You remember the story of the Olympics when Phelps lost, I don't know what event it was, in the championships to the South African swimmer.
Yeah.
𝘕𝘿𝑎𝑐𝑙𝑜se.
𝘕𝘿𝑎𝑐𝑙𝑜se, you got it, man. I'm impressed by your swimming knowledge.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And in the green room before the gold medal race, 𝘕𝘿𝑎𝑐𝑙𝑜se is like trying to psych out Phelps. Like he's doing weird stuff, and Phelps has his hood on, his headphones on, and he's locked in. He's not even acknowledging the noise. He's not even trying to compare. He's in his own lane. And there's a very famous picture of Phelps about to win gold and beat who he lost to, and 𝘕𝘿𝑎𝑐𝑙𝑜se is looking over at another lane instead of looking at his race. Run your race. It's not the road to success, it's the success road. So find your process, find your passion, and everyone else is already taken. Just be the next you. Like, that's a gift. That's a gift. If you, an advice that I think is powerful is scratch an itch, find a niche, you'll be rich. The bad word at the end make sure people are awake. So do what makes you come alive. Like, what makes you curious? What art are you a fan of that you want to create for yourself? Like, make art for yourself. That in terms of like, this is my interest, this is my curiosity, this is what makes sense to me. And then find an audience that has that need or, is looking for that service. And when you can win those two, what makes me come alive and what serves others, that's wealth. It's not money, because you have energy and you have people that you align with in terms of your vision and what's most important. I mean, it took me till I was 39 to do that, because I left. So then going back to the original question, how did I do it? Is I started crushing it in sales, like numbers they've never seen before. It was like top in the country. And so I was blogging about the stuff I was learning. And I called our national sales director. I was like, what if I started coaching people? What if I create this same experience that changed my life? And a lot of times in corporate America, you get onboarding for a few weeks, and then you're done. Then you have a manager, but there's really no coaching. Managers today they don't coach. Mm-hmm. They're not certified coaches. They usually were the best salesperson or the best producer, and then they get promoted. They have very little leadership training on how to connect with the person, not just push whatever product that they're trying to peddle. So I started traveling the country, like literally coaching and testing all my theories, and we did a really good job. We changed a lot of lives. And then I'm like, do you think Tony Robbins will be selling catheters and
you outgrew the catheters.
I don't know. I said if I'm really like world class, which I strive to be, authentic, genuine, vulnerable, zero ego, just be of complete of service, give everything I have to anybody I work with. If I want to charge the fees I think I'm capable of charging, like I don't have, this is not like a side hustle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think so. We have way more in common than, firstly, huge Garfield fan growing up. You acknowledge that. Secondly, that sort of coming out of an industry where you excelled, and it's taken me a while to actually just own that. And from my past, is to just say, you know what, Steve, you kind of did, you kind of excelled, but within that world, something about it, what it was you wanted to do, and why you feel God put you on this earth, something about it, it came with a ceiling. It came with a ceiling that I maybe was right up against for a lot longer than I'm willing to admit. And it was kind of my version of outgrowing the catheters, if you will. And so for me, as I'm listening to you, and as we're speaking here for our audience, to really just emphasize in this moment right now, listen, if you're listening to this and you're just wondering, how do I relate to this? What could this mean to me? Going back to your initial insight off the back of that last question around the environment, in any way right now, as you look around your world professionally to start, and maybe even personally, are you operating under a ceiling? Are you operating within something that you just know is kind of squashing you in terms of your potential, that you know until you get outside of, it's going to be near impossible for you to even identify what you want and how you can achieve it? Because I have to imagine now, not to live in the assumption too much here, but as you step out of that space, Collin, and you now decide, like, hey, listen, I'm making my success road for myself, what starts happening then? Like, what do you start to notice in those initial months and even in that first year when you're now committed and you say, listen, I'm leaving this world behind and I'm showing up in this space to pursue my best self, as you put it, when it comes to growth?
Yeah, life isn't what you experience. Life is what you focus on every day. Tony Robbins said that. Let's go back to the GOAT. So if you're focusing on other people's dreams, other people's desires, if you feel like you have to do something versus I get to do something, I think being in this position now, like, I literally don't work. I don't have a freaking job. I don't work. I don't stress at night. I don't wake up with the scaries. Like, I just feel like I'm working with like people I love and care about, I respect, that I'm selling a product which is helping people be their best. So I want to align people who have the same vision. So I'm not for everyone.
Right.
If you don't see your most important asset as people, but a number or a market share, don't hire me.
Right.
And that's why I think everybody wants to be everything for everyone. Let's go back to it. Scratch an itch, find a niche. Find people who have similar values and beliefs that you do, that value the certain skill sets that you have. And it might take some time. And you might have to have a side hustle for a while. I had a side hustle for literally 3 years where I was doing catheters and doing mindset,
Yeah.
I'm trying to go back to what you asked me.
No, just like that initial year, let's say, so you had that 3 years where you're kind of doing a bit of both. When you got out on the open road and you're now saying, like, hey, here I go. This is what I want to do. This is where I need to be. And this is why I was put on this earth. Like, for you, from a momentum standpoint, what did that start to do for you in terms of how you showed up and what you achieved?
I had energy. Like I said, I didn't feel like I felt in alignment with my You may have heard of the Japanese term called ikigai.
Yep.
So do you remember all the inputs for that?
I don't remember all the inputs. I know how much of it has to do with just it all comes back to process, right? In terms of what we're doing and how we're doing it.
So it's aligning what you're good at with what you love, and it aligns with an audience that needs that, and getting paid to do that.
Right.
So when you have those in alignment of a strength, a love, a passion, and a skill set, like I had to develop this skill set of teaching these concepts. Because you can be passionate about personal growth, but you haven't really worked on and harnessed your skills and got coaching and done going to conferences like where you and met 𝘕𝘶𝘴𝘰𝘥𝘦. Can we give a shout out to 𝘕𝘶𝘴𝘰?
𝘕𝘶𝘴𝘰, ladies and gentlemen.
and sharpening your iron with other like-minded people, going to learn to be a speaker, going to those conferences, and harnessing and like developing your skill set in that passion. So I think a lot of people might be passionate about money, but do you really know how to make money? Like really know how to make money that you can teach other people? And then finding your voice in that area, finding your unique way, doing it. You got the battle between Kendrick Lamar and Drake, two completely different rappers, like completely different styles of rapping, and they're both successful in their own unique way. But if everyone's like Kendrick, like hip hop would be really boring. I think as I get older, and maybe you are too, like there's a term by Dr. Michael Gervais. He says the number one epidemic in performance is this acronym called FOPO. YOLO is you only live once. FOMO is fear of missing out. FOPO is fear of people's opinions. Again, your desire to be cool and look intelligent is stronger than your desire to grow. Then you're kind of screwed, because your motivation is extrinsic versus intrinsic. But the highest level of drive and motivation is pro-social. So if you can mix intrinsic with pro-social, you're serving a common purpose that's bigger than yourself. That's where like I feel like I'm doing work that's serving, and I'm providing value, and I'm not for everyone. And you know what? But I feel like if we just sit down and I listen to your needs, I really believe that mindset is the solution to everything.
Yeah.
I am so adamant that whatever problem you throw at me, I'm probably going to look at it and say, well, there's a mindset gap here. There's a mindset issue. There's a belief issue. There's your behaviors are in alignment with your values. Like that's a mind set that we got to work on.
And you use the mental conditioning piece very deliberately whenever you're speaking on this kind of stuff. And even in everything that you're speaking to here, just immediately from an intentional standpoint, that seems to be just a consistent theme as an outcome, is that if we're putting a lot of these pieces into place, intentionality is going to take care of itself. It's a big word for me in my work. And I'm just curious for you now, when you think about the conditioning part of this, which allows us now to go back about 25 minutes to where I had you around the prehab concept that you shared with us. I'm curious, just when you look at the conditioning piece, firstly, what are some of those main foundational parts that you're providing to those you work with when it comes to conditioning? But what's that doing for a person's intention? Because I'm just curious to sort of hear how you walk through and how you see intention, and then sort of compare it to how I look at it.
That's really great. I think a lot of people wake up and they're just kind of on autopilot. They're chasing their emails, their calendar, their inbox, and I think having intention is critical. But Steve, I asked you what you asked me. I asked you before you press record. I said, tell me your philosophy.
Yep.
What do you believe? Like how?
I had a feeling that would come back around in the conversation too.
Well, because I'm a student, number one. I will always be a student, and it's the question: would you follow the warrior or the student who studied the warrior who's never been in battle? I'd rather study the warrior who's obsessed with being a student too. So I've got my ass kicked a lot, but I am obsessed with I want to maximize this hour together, and I would actually probably rather ask you questions, but you asked me to be on your show, so I'm gonna mix them in, so I can learn from your experience. But there's a term. So my 5 pillars, like my I think every human needs a mental conditioning foundation, a mindset foundation, the fundamentals of high performance. And if you're a strength trainer, you probably have a philosophy on, we're going to work on core. We're going to be flexible. We're going to work on fast twitch, soft tissue. You know, if you're coaching football, we're going to run the wing tee or, you know, the spread offense. We're going to attack the linebacker here. We're going to stretch the field. You know, I guess if you are a dance instructor, you know, it's all about the 8 count. We're going to be in alignment with these points. We're going to activate our, whatever it is, you have a philosophy. If you're selling real estate or, you know, who haven't we healthcare, who haven't we touched on? You know, if you're a teacher, educator, what's your philosophy to engage students? Like, what's your philosophy to build trust? So anything you're doing, if you don't have a clear philosophy, you can't duplicate, you can't scale. So there's 4 levels of competency. But before I do that, I guess I'll tell my 5. My first is self-awareness. If I'm coaching you, I've coached like first round draft picks, and I've coached executive C-suite, and I've coached 12-year-olds. I literally do the same thing.
Yep.
I have the same philosophy of asking questions to help the learner with awareness about themselves, about how I can serve them. So I start with self-awareness. Then I think one of the fastest mental conditioning returns you can get is self-talk. How you communicate with yourself, about your past, about your future, about the challenge, about everything. Words create worlds. Words are your wands. I have a lot of data on the number one source of confidence is not in your past performance, but in how you talk to yourself about what's happening. The third one is your self-image, your identity, how you see yourself. You never outperform your self-image. So how are you designing that? Is it by default or design? What are your values? What are your strengths? What do you value? How do you get worth? And then courage. Courage is a mental skill every human needs, every child needs, every adult, every parent needs. Come on, man.
Come on,
anybody that's an entrepreneur, anybody that's trying something difficult, we literally can train the elements of courage. I'll teach you how to do it because I used to stutter. Now I speak for a living.
Yeah.
And then being process focused is the last one, habits of excellence, like knowing what you're going to do based off of your goals and your desires and your values, what behaviors activate excellence in alignment with all those, your awareness, your self-talk, your language, I guess mindfulness and how you visualize, your identity, your self-image, navigating fear and failure, and having duplicate behaviors that you've identified, not random. So the 4 levels of competency is, the first one is what's called unconscious incompetence. I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
So kind of a lot of people are walking around like zombies because they're just, okay, I went to high school, I went to college, my parents told me I should get a job, and this is what I majored in, or maybe I didn't major in this because a lot of majors, you know, we have jobs that have no connection to our major. I need to get a paycheck because I got to pay rent, I have the house, and you're just in this cycle, and you're just really not aware of really, well, what makes me come alive?
Right.
Where are my past traumas and shame-based memories that I'm literally latching onto, that I'm reinforcing, I'm grooving every day of living in shame, living in fear. Why coaching is so life-altering. Because with a coach who can ask questions, or therapist, we go from unconscious incompetence now to consciously I'm incompetent. Oh, damn. I have been doing that pattern. Holy crap. Why have I been doing that?
Right.
I don't know, because you've been conditioned like unbeknown, because you're a human and the brain is a pattern machine and it's designed to survive, not thrive. That's why you're avoiding those things that you really need to do. I love this quote from Carl Jung, that thing that you fear the most, that is your task. Because once you go from unconsciously I'm not aware to now I'm aware, where a coach or a mentor or a mastermind or therapy or whatever it is, someone outside of you can give you some tips to become consciously competent, or ask some questions to help you come up with your own way to address that thing that you want to work on. So unconsciously incompetent, now I'm consciously incompetent, I guess I need to work on this. Now let's be consciously competent. So what is not conscious becomes your fate. Because your brain's a pattern machine, it's going to do it whether you're aware or not. So let's design some values and behaviors and set some goals, and let's get our reps in over and over again so we can do it and be unconsciously competent.
That's it.
It's like when you swam and you crushed, you know, those times, like you grooved movements over and over again, and you had, you know, you maybe visualized or self-talked your way, like you were narrating your life in in that competition, and you are literally creating beliefs and behaviors physically. Well, we can do that mentally.
Yep.
So we can align our values with our words, our thoughts, and our actions. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. This is most important thing I'm taking from the 5 pillars before I even get to those 4 competencies. The 5 pillars for me, and I noticed that you kind of hit on this one more than the other 4, was the self-talk, and you sort of spoke about it with the words, and you alluded to it earlier in the conversation, is that maybe we stop listening to ourselves and we talk to ourselves, and we get better at that. And I think for me, I've spent almost 9 years now in therapy, and so much of that work has been based around a guy that when I arrived was all or nothing in every aspect of life. Probably took my therapist 20 minutes to diagnose, like, dude, everything is all or nothing in your life, and that's got to be exhausting. And I was like, hey, no one's ever said that to me. Here we go. Let's get into the hood and work on Steve. And so here I am now, able to sort of say, like, so much of that all or nothing mindset came from listening to myself speak as though everything was the stakes were just always so high in my world as an athlete, and therefore, because I was conditioned that way, life became the highest of stakes in every single component. And that's just not realistic. It's why I'm so passionate now about, in the coaching I do, is to help people understand what is high stakes and focus on those, but not make everything that. Like, where's that space that we're trying to be incredible in? Okay, cool. Let's acknowledge those high stakes. But then let's step right away and let's go be silly. Let's go be that silly dad, that silly mom. Let's go have that cup of coffee with somebody and not make it about the stakes. Let's just escape from that and understand we can do that. But part of that sort of development for me and complete evolution mentally has come from being able to notice, like, Steve, you're listening to yourself right now. Can I just interrupt and start talking? And that interruption, man, I mean, that takes so long to work on, and I am still in no way at a point of mastery. But I think so much of what you're speaking to here is how good do we get at interrupting ourselves, and so we get out of our own way, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, how long would it take to learn a new language? If you learn how to speak in French, how long would that take, Steve?
Well, based on what my French teacher said in high school, a hell of a long time. A hell of a long time.
A long time is about right. So yeah. That's no different than learning how to talk to yourself. It's literally a new language, because you have patterns of how you process the world. And I want everyone to walk home from this conversation is, language is the wardrobe of your beliefs. And how you show up, your attitude is an outfit you choose to put on. It's a choice. So that's why you said set your intentions. Well, today I want to be compassionate. So what would a compassionate person sound like to myself and to others? What would a confident person sound like? What would someone who is fully present? And I'm going to be present today. So you literally set your intention every day. And again, this is such a, I do all day seminars, so we got 60 minutes. There's one thing I can teach anybody is start being aware of common negative thoughts, these patterns of how you describe yourself. Labels make you limitless. Don't ever tell your daughter she is a picky eater. How you speak to your kids becomes their self-talk.
Yep.
Words are tools. Like it's coding. The brain thinks in 4 dimensions. A word creates a picture the mind sees, an emotion the body feels, and a belief that the soul holds. So this conditioning is like, write down some truths about yourself. Write down a script, just like in advertising, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Like, have the same pre-planned language to code. Like self-talk is the code of the software of your brain.
Yep.
So I spend a lot of time on the clients I work with, So maybe I'll end with this. Can we do a little exercise to
I would
wrap
love
up?
that. Come on now. We promised them some coaching. Let's give the people what they came for.
Let's conclude with a little coaching exercise. Like, I'm going to give you 5 words in no order, Steve. 5 words in no order. So get your pen out and paper. I want you to write down these 5 words. And after I write them down, I want you to look at those 5 words and with your best knowledge, Give me what sequence in order from beginning in a continuum that feeds itself like a circle. Okay, so here are the words. Ready?
Ready.
Feeling, action, focus, stimulus, story.
Okay.
Do you have the 5? Maybe repeat back to the audience so they hear.
Yeah,
it.
feeling, action, focus, stimulus, and story.
Okay, look at those, and in your best first instinct, give me a continuum of where it starts and the last step in that process.
I'm going to go with... Whew. All right, I'm not gonna sit here for too long on this.
Hey, growth.
I'm just gonna go.
We're working on growth.
Let's go.
Desire to grow, more important than looking intelligent. Let's go.
I'm gonna go story, focus, stimulus, feeling, action.
Give me the reason.
The reason is I believe we all walk around with our stories, and they're just playing nonstop, just like Netflix is just running through our head all the time in terms of our life. And those stories drive the focus of whatever we see. Our stories allow us to see what we see and interpret it the way we do, which now moves to the stimulus. So that interpretation would be the stimulus for me. That stimulus immediately would probably create some sort of feeling, which then leads to an action. That's what I got.
Here's the great thing about exercise. There's this philosophy. There's no wrong or right.
I knew it. Come on now. I felt so good. And you're going to give me that. You can't get it wrong.
There's no wrong. No, you're a competitor. There's your all or nothing tendency.
I know.
Out.
I did it. Back to therapy next week.
Back to therapy next week. Yeah, you have to tell that to your therapist. No, so I think I would classify my sixth self as a success scientist. My passion and my area of expertise, I guess, is the curiosity of studying what is real success and what are the common traits, the common thought patterns, the common structure, the common team dynamics, the common whoever it is. And so I try to look at patterns and I try to decode patterns. So that's the secret of the game, is to find the patterns, understand them, and learn how to create a new pattern for yourself and those that you lead. So part of my work as a mental conditioning coach is to break the pattern. It's super corny but overused, but that whole, the matrix, like red pill, blue pill, like, do you want the truth? Do you want to do the work? Or do you want to just be in this like dreamlike state that's not real?
Yeah.
So I think part of that little exercise is what makes sense to you?
Right.
And of those 5, what do you got to work on?
Yep.
So how my brain makes sense, it starts with stimulus.
Okay.
Whether you hear a song on the radio, where you see a show, you're in a new environment, you're around a leader or a teammate, you're put in a position, you're on a podcast. Oh shit, how's your self-talk? Oh my God, I need to look intelligent. Okay, can I remember all the things I need to say? And you forget to listen and you're not present. Like there's a stimulus that leads to what you've been conditioned to focus on. Is this an opportunity? Is this a threat? Energy flows where focus goes. Your life is not what you experience. Your life is what you choose to focus on, what you've been trained to focus on. And focus precedes feeling. Because if you're focusing on, oh, I get to talk to Collin today. He's like a nice dude and I enjoy our conversation. Or it could be, dude, Collin, like he criticizes me a lot. And so you're where your focus goes, your energy goes. So that creates an emotional response, which feeds a narrative or a story. Stories create emotion. And that's how emotion, so that focus makes you feel something, and then your nervous system stores trauma. The Body Keeps a Score, a great book, The Body Keeps a Score. So that feeling is narrating in your DNA what you just experienced.
Yep.
And Dr. Joe Dispenza has shared 35 to 50% of our memories are untrue. Because the brain's biased to go negative. We're literally creating untrue stories about what we just experienced or what happened or about ourselves. Like I told myself, I'm not a good public speaker. That was untrue. I had one moment of it. And I'm creating a story because my focus was don't stutter. My emotion was anxiety. My execution was poor. Now I've linked the focus and the emotion to a story, which will drive your next step or your action. Are you going to play small? Are you going to play big?
Yep.
Are you going to ask for help? Are you going to serve? Are you going to make that phone call? Are you going to ask her on a date? Are you going to call that client back because they said no? Is the story they don't want me or it wasn't the right time? And wherever your action is, sets a chain reaction of another stimulus that either feeds the story or changes it. So that's me selling that pretty hard. But.
Yeah, you sold it harder than I did. I've not had enough time to refine it as you have. But so people are probably way more buying into your order than mine right now, which is all
you
good.
walked into my trap though. But there is no right answer. That is true. It's like whatever. But all I want that to do is like, okay, do you need to work on where you're focusing your energy on? Do you need to work on healing some trauma? Do you need to work on uncovering the origin, the source of that pain, and either nurturing that younger self or going through therapy or reinterpreting that feeling means excitement or that feeling means growth opportunity or that feeling means I'm nervous and that means this means something to me. And I think we can spend a lot of time on taking the life or the pen back of our life and rewriting the story of, that was for this.
Yep.
That mistake or that hardship like led me to this growth or this curiosity. I wouldn't have this drive to serve and grow and write 7 books and to travel all over the place and do all these curriculums if I didn't have a lot of pain. I'm so grateful for that pain because if I didn't have that pain, I wouldn't be here.
Yep. And the word patterns, I didn't realize how much more British that word is compared to when American says it. But patterns themselves, the more we become aware of those, the easier it is then for us to create these interruptions, so to speak. And I think that is, to your point there, you just share with us, like if there were anything that someone were to take away from this, and trust me, there's a hell of a lot more than just that in the last 5 minutes, but at the heart of it, just to kind of give a shit enough to acknowledge your patterns. Like, just don't stop going through whatever is the norm and monotony and tedious. If it is tedious, if it is something that's not invigorating you, going all the way back to one of the first insights you made around fulfillment. It's like if you want fulfillment and your current patterns aren't providing it, then don't start questioning the fulfillment. Go to the pattern, go to the process, think about it, because that's where we can interrupt things in a way that will serve an outcome that we are capable of achieving. And there we go, landing with the potential piece as we close here. But brother, I mean, as you alluded to, you do these things over hours and hours in a day. We've been able to take a day-long course and jam it into about 45 minutes of back and forth between you and I. It's why I kind of wanted to just like step back as much as I could from the mic and just say, hey, let Collin, let him do his thing, let him do his thing, because there's so much good here. And with that being said, I want to encourage people to be able to go and learn more about you, to dive more into these concepts, all the sort of stuff. So if I were to be someone that wants to do that, where might I go?
First thing I would do is free resources, our Master Mindset podcast, where all podcasts are found. I have a producer co-host who I've been with since he was in 8th grade.
Wow.
His name's Tanner Pierce, aka T Money. So we've done like 250 episodes. You can go to Amazon. I have 2 journals and 7 books. You can go to Instagram at Collin Henderson and LinkedIn, Collin Henderson. I could probably be better. Hannah does a much better job than I do in terms of posting regularly. But I would say those would be the top places. And you asked pre-show. I don't know when this is going to air, but I have a online course called Quiet Mind that's newly going to be launching. I have a course for athletes and coaches on mental toughness, but Quiet Mind is for everyone, businesses, leaders, parents, anybody who, think about this. In this current digital age of information overload, being able to quiet your mind is the new currency of success. So evidence-based tools, not just, woo-woo, rah-rah. It's not motivation. It's actually mental conditioning drills.
I love it. And I didn't tell you this piece. When you told me that, I was like, well, I happen to know that this episode is going to come out right around the same time when you're releasing that based on what you shared with me. So wanted to kind of just share that with you here because we're going to release this. You and I will talk off air in terms of timing, but I want this to go out right as that's going out, just to further support you and just the publicizing of that, because it's clearly an amazing tool for just about anyone, like you said, who needs to get better at quieting their mind. I know I could do a better job at that. So if you got a couple of coaches acknowledging that we can do a better job at it, you probably can do a better job at it too. So with all that being said, brother, I appreciate it. This has been worth the wait. I really enjoyed it. I could probably go another hour quite easily. You did what is always a good sign. I filled and went on to a second page of notes as you were talking, so that means that we were definitely covering some great stuff. But brother, I appreciate you. Wishing you the best of luck with everything you got going on, and thanks again for joining us.
All right, man, thank you so much.
And thanks again to Collin for joining us on this episode. And as we concluded the conversation, I really want to start there with all of you. I know we made a huge emphasis around patterns in the closing remarks, but I just want to double down on it in case for those of you at the back that didn't hear it. It's so powerful. I alluded to it in my journey with therapy. And what I've come to realize is that the more and more I've pursued high performance and surrounded people who are doing the same, is that we all have our own version of a cycle, as Collin alluded to, whether it be the story, stimulus, focus, activity, feeling cycle that Collin presented to us, or whatever it may be for you. What is that cycle of emotions, of output, of activity that you have? And how aware of it are you? Maybe start by just doing a simple diagnostic check. Sit quietly, have a pen in hand. Just ask yourself, like, how do I operate? How do I show up? What are the things that immediately draw me in? Don't worry whether it's a positive draw in or a negative right now. Just think about how you show up and how your mind is drawn towards something that you decide is worth paying attention to. That could be the beginning of stories. That could be the beginning of false interpretations. It could be anything. And it's a process for you to start working through to better familiarize yourself with the patterns at play in your life and the way in which they're either serving you or preventing you from getting where it is you want to get to. So much insight courtesy of Collin throughout that hour. But at the end of the day, can you start to better understand your patterns and interrupt yourself where you need to be interrupted so that you can start talking to yourself in a way that's serving your potential? Hopefully I was able to just take 60 minutes and condense it right down into a one-sentence summary there for you. But start there, folks. I'm excited to hear how you do. And with that in mind, please reach out, Steve@GrowthReady or podcast@GrowthReady. You can use either email. Feel free to reach out to me through Instagram @Coach Steve Mellor. You can find me on LinkedIn. And of course, as you're listening to this, knowing that you've just benefited so much, don't be selfish. Don't hold on to this. Make sure you're sharing this with people. Let people know. Share the episode. Send it to someone right now. And of course, make sure you're subscribed and make sure you're leaving us a 5-star rating as well. Best of luck to anything and everything you've got going on right now in your world. And I look forward to doing this again with you very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.